Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Moon Podcast. In this episode, I will be sharing some basic writing tips, focusing mainly on character. For those of you who don't know, I am a writer, a novelist, and a manga artist. Over the last few years, we have been seeing characters in movies, TV shows, and other places who are supposedly flawless. The perfect character, mockingly known as Mary Sue. I'm sure you can think of many examples. We have also seen that the vast majority of people don't like them, myself included. The perfect character can do no wrong. They are not appealing, they are annoying. So, as a novelist, I'm going to share a few reasons why and share a few tips with you about basic character creation. So, let's begin. To me, there are 5 types of characters. The first is the primary source. Here you start with yourself. You are your own primary source of character creation. You know yourself better than anyone else. Imagine putting yourself in a different time and setting. What would you do? Why and how? Only you know your own past. You have your own fears and motivations. But you mustn't fill the story with characters only based on yourself, otherwise they will all act and talk the same as you. There will be no range of characters and it will be boring. The world is not like that. The second type of primary source is the people you know, your family, your friends. You know how they talk, how they behave, and how they would respond to things. What makes it even more interesting is imagining people you know who have never met each other. They have very different personalities. How will they treat each other? How will they get on with each other? Or will they argue all the time? You can imagine a sibling meeting one of your colleagues, or maybe your current girlfriend meeting one of your exes from a long ago. Imagine the drama it would create. Remember, drama equals conflict, and conflict makes stories interesting. That's what most readers want. Now we move on to secondary source character creation. The third type. These characters are based on real life people you know about, but you never actually met. They could be historical people who are already dead, they could be famous people, or they could be someone you saw on TV. Imagine a king from the past, let's say Henry VIII, is having a chat with a Sigmund Freud type character over his personal issues. Or imagine Steve Jobs, who is about to enter the final in a chess tournament and his opponent is Stanley Kubrick. Or imagine Florence Nightingale meeting the lead singer from Florence and the Machine. That to me would be an interesting duo. You get the idea, I'm just brainstorming. The fourth character type, which is another secondary source character, are those who are completely fictional. They can be based on characters in movies, TV shows, video games, etc. Let's say your favorite character from your favorite TV show meets a character from a movie or a theater or even a video game. See what you can get out of them. But in order for this to work, you have to know the characters really well. The fictional characters themselves have to have a lot of depth to them. If they don't have depth, better yet, you can add them, or you can create your own interpretation of what that character would do. Let's say there is a movie with a character you are familiar with, but it acts out of character which puts you off. You can create your own version of the story, with different names, of course. The fifth type of character is created from pure imagination. Here, your character can be anything you want him or her to be, but you mustn't fall into the trap of making the character perfect. No one is in a good mood all the time. Nobody looks their best all the time. People get sick. Not everyone gets on with everybody. People need to bathe and go to the toilet. I don't think they look the same all the time either. Would someone look their best when they wake up on a Monday morning feeling rough? Imagine having a telephone conversation with this character. How do they sound? Do they have an accent? Are they loud? Do they constantly interrupt? Or are they quiet, good listeners who take an interest in people? Now that you have created your characters, what they look like, how they behave, how they think, what they feel, etc., you need to ask yourself, actually, you need to ask your character, what does the character want? Why do they want it? Desire is what drives the story. No goals, no story. Is there a problem that the character needs to solve? Is there something missing in that character's life? If so, what is it? Is there a threat that needs to be annihilated? If not, can it be avoided? What are the pros and cons of that goal? What is stopping the character from getting what they want? Who are the allies that support your character? Who are the villains that want to stop your character from getting what they want? What could possibly be the worst case scenario for your character? If so, what happens then? What would your character do to avoid it? These are the sort of things you need to figure out for your characters. When your character wants something, they will do whatever it takes to get it. The goal is the engine of the story. It's a journey. Now that your character has a goal, we need to move on to the obstacles. Nothing should be easily gained, otherwise there is no sacrifice and no one will care. Anything easily gained is easily lost. Thus, it becomes meaningless. In order to create a character that is believable, you need to do the next thing, which is to create conflict. Again, conflict means drama. Conflict makes things interesting. Readers enjoy drama. Every person has 3 types of conflicts: internal conflict, interpersonal conflict, and external conflict. What are they? The first type of conflict is internal conflict. It's when a person has a conflict within themselves. I'll give you some examples. Tiffany is trying to lose weight, but her body is craving for more sugar and junk food. The doctor told her if she doesn't lose weight, she'll become even more obese and die of some other illness. He couldn't ignore the elephant in the room. Everywhere she goes, she sees adverts of junk food that will lead her down the rabbit hole of overeating, so she changes her ways and strives to keep fit, starting with a strict diet. She slowly adapts a healthier lifestyle. Her motivation is to keep fit. Larry is trying to quit smoking, but his body is craving it, so he replaces it by chewing gum. Whenever he hears someone say, "I'm just going out for a smoke," he gets triggered. He tenses up. His body wants to smoke, but his mind is fighting the urge for the sake of his long-term health. His motivation is to stay healthy. Andrew is in a troubled relationship with his wife. They argue a lot over trivial things. So he goes to the pub to get away from the house and to take his mind off things with a drink. While he drinks, he sees the new barmaid start her new shift. She is young and attractive. He is tempted to seduce her, but he remembers that he is married and he knows adultery is wrong. He cannot risk having an affair. Instead, this gives him the motivation to sort things out with his wife. The second type of conflict is interpersonal conflict. These conflicts are people who are having conflicts with other people. People argue, they have conflicting interests. Every person thinks they are right according to their own point of view. This is why conflicts occur, and this is okay. It's natural. Here are some examples. A customer wants a refund for a faulty product, but the sales clerk refuses because it's store policy. The customer insists on getting her money back, but the clerk is not allowed to. Another example, a father, a mother, and their teenage daughter are eating at a dinner table. The girl asks the mum if she can go to a concert in a few weeks' time. The mum tells her to ask her father. The father refuses. The parents don't approve of the music she listens to. As far as they are concerned, they have already compromised by letting her listen to it even though they don't approve of it. The concert ticket is too expensive. She's too young to go on her own to such places. She's not doing very well at school right now either. So all 3 of them argue. Or maybe even a couple arguing over something so trivial that it will be forgotten by tomorrow morning. This would be a useful tool in the story to show how the bond between these 2 characters are strong. The third type of conflict is external conflict, a conflict which the characters have no control over and they are battling with their own environment. This can have an impact on the hero's journey in negative ways. More challenges. Here are some examples. A farmer is struggling to grow crops because of bad weather and he is having trouble dealing with pests destroying his crops. What he dreads the most is famine, a flood, or any other natural disaster. Right now, a lot of people around the world are struggling with the cost of living crisis. Another recession means increasing costs, which means higher bills. Another recession means more cuts to public facilities, which will lead to more strikes, which will impact the lives of everyone living in that country. Everyone is struggling and feeling powerless. there is a collective sense of doom among the population. Or, on the 1st of January 2024, an earthquake destroyed the homes of many people in Japan, leaving thousands homeless, hundreds injured, and dozens dead. Where will the survivors stay? How will they cope? How much will it cost to repair a huge amount of damage? How will these people rebuild their lives after such a catastrophic event? Or maybe even a fisherman is having an unlucky day because he hasn't caught a fish all day. He went fishing to get away from the house, the noise of his wife and kids, with a little goal in mind to catch some fish. After hours of fishing, he gets nothing. He sighs, packs up, and goes home. At least he got the peace and quiet he wanted. To him, catching a fish was just a little extra. But why are these conflicts so important in writing? It's because these things are relatable. The chances are there are people out there who are living these sorts of lives right now. You may even know someone who's going through these situations or something similar. The next thing to consider is character development. What makes them what they are? People are shaped by the world around them. Every person in this world had a different upbringing. There are cultural differences. They have different values and beliefs. Things happen for a reason. People do things for different reasons. Not everything is logical either. This is one of the fun parts of writing because this gives us a chance to investigate the characters we create. This gives characters depth, another layer of relatability, such as the following examples. Mr. Ranford is a mean old man who doesn't like dogs. Why? This goes back to the past. When he was a boy, while playing with his friends, his football ended up in his neighbor's garden. When he climbed over the fence into the neighbor's garden to retrieve the ball, the neighbor's dog ran out and bit him. As a boy, he was so frightened. He never got over his phobia of dogs since that day. Another example, Mrs. Jarrett insists her grandchildren carry an umbrella with them everywhere they go. Why? Because her husband died from catching a cold after being soaked in the rain. Of course, English weather is known for being rainy and unpredictable. If only he carried an umbrella. She is concerned for her grandchildren. Like I said, there are reasons why people do certain things. Now, this is on an individual level. What about on a collective level? How do a group of people behave collectively? People behave differently in different cultures and countries around the world. Stereotypes are good because 1. They define character. 2. It's a reminder there are cultural differences around the world. 3. This means more conflict, which will mean more interesting storytelling. 4. They have different backgrounds. Here are some examples I made up. Here we have Vinnie Conti. He is a big, loud Italian guy. When he meets people, he gives them a firm handshake, a tight squeeze, and a hard slap on someone's back. He waves his hands around when he talks. He openly makes comments about people around him. For instance, he would chastise somebody for looking at their watch while he's talking. "What's the matter? You got a plane to catch. Am I boring you, huh?" He effortlessly speaks his mind. On the other hand, we have Yamada Ishikawa. He is a quiet Japanese man. He is reserved and likes to speak only when it's necessary. He doesn't like physical contact with strangers and prefers to bow instead of a handshake. He is a formal, polite man. He prefers to keep his comments to himself. Here we have two completely different characters from two completely different backgrounds. What would happen if these two met? I'll leave that to your imagination. To me, it's a comedy show waiting to happen. People have hopes and fears. What drives a story is what people want. What is the fear? What is the motivation? What are the risks, if there are any? Someone could be doing something out of fear, such as a job they dislike in order to stay out of poverty so that they won't end up homeless. On the other hand, what motivates them is that they want to save money in order to buy something they need or go on a nice vacation. Who doesn't do that? Again, these are all relatable because we've all been there. We're all living it somehow. There is also an element of time. People change. We are not the same throughout our lives. We change as we get older. Some of us stumble into events that made us change our minds, or maybe our motivations changed. What if what we thought we wanted at first was something else entirely? Here are some examples. A model who had a terrible accident that disfigured her body and her face learned that it wasn't modeling that she enjoyed, it was networking, meeting people and helping others with their needs, so she became a consultant instead. An ice cream man decides to become a dentist. A multimillionaire who decides to give up his materialistic corporate lifestyle for a life of traveling and seeking meaning. A little girl overcomes her fear of bees and becomes a beekeeper as a profession. As we can see, people change. When all this comes together, this is proof that perfect characters suck. A perfect character doesn't have problems. A perfect character doesn't deal with any of the conflicts I mentioned earlier, be it internal, interpersonal, or external. Why? Because in a perfect world, there is no conflict at all. That's not the way the world works. The conflicts around us are two conflicting forces working in tandem with one another. Conflict is necessary. A perfect character doesn't struggle with anything. A perfect character doesn't change. Why? Because they are already perfect. They don't need to change. A perfect character doesn't strive because everything is easy for them. These are the reasons why perfect characters are impossible to relate to. What's worse is that the perfect character is supposedly better than you, me, everyone, all because they don't have the same problems as us, which is insulting for most people. We can't relate to them because they are unrealistic people with unrealistic standards. Right now, you might be asking, but Mus, what about gods? Are they not perfect? We can all argue whether gods are fallible or infallible. The difference is, this gives us something to aspire to become something better. We aspire to be something greater than ourselves, but even they are not perfect. Funny enough, we tend to project our own faults onto the very gods we pray to. We recognize something about ourselves in them. We tend to put human qualities into everything. Even atheists marvel at the beauty of Mother Nature. But of course, she has a dark side. Natural disasters and diseases, predators and prey. Outer space isn't perfect either. Black holes suck things into themselves and destroy things into oblivion. A literal floating abyss. There are stars that explode, comets and asteroids that can hit planet Earth any moment. These are the imperfections of our universe that we are part of. Like I said, we tend to idolize things that are greater than ourselves, such as Mother Nature and outer space. We are not going to be around forever. All we can do is be thankful for our being, for it is these imperfect elements that brought us here in the first place. That is the way of life, opposite forces working in tandem with one another. We inherit the genes from our parents that shape our characteristics. This is a result of millions of years of evolution. It has been a long and hard journey. We are influenced by the people around us. Some are good, others are bad. They shape our being as we get older. Some have good outcomes, while others are not so good. The perfect character doesn't exist. Nobody is perfect. Although it is our responsibility to make ourselves better than before, we cannot be better than everybody else. It's not possible. And this is one reason why I write novels. We are humans. We have experiences. We have moments of joy and sadness, hopes and fears, all these things intertwined with others, and we want to share them. That is the beauty of storytelling. Now, how do you know all this, you may be asking? It's because I learned from the best. I have read lots of books from authors good and bad and learned how to create believable characters. I hired an editor to look at my writing. They are ideal for feedback. So, for you, I recommend reading these two books, Characters, Emotion, and Viewpoint. This is a good textbook with exercises, and How Not to Write a Novel. This book makes fun of the worst cliches in books. I am sure you have come across them before and you know why they are bad. The best thing about this book is that it's funny, a joy to read, with words of wisdom from other authors and essayists. Nothing beats learning while you laugh. I can prove that I take all this seriously as I have written a novel and some short stories, with more on the way. You can buy my books on Amazon. I'll put the links in the description below. Corporate Annihilation is my longest novel. This is about four siblings who hate each other, but when a mutual threat comes along, they have to work together. Will they learn to work together? Will they learn to love each other? My short stories are The Forest, Trevor, School Shooter, and Just Business. The Forest is a fantasy horror story about a town that is haunted by the forest they depend on. When they investigate the source of all the hauntings, they discover something worse. Trevor is a contemporary tragedy. A teenager in London named Trevor, with a problematic upbringing, has a drug addiction which gets him into a deeper trouble. School Shooter is about an American teenager who shoots up his school before committing suicide. Everybody knows what happened, but nobody knows why it happens. You, the reader, get to play the role of the inspector who questions those who knew the shooter and piece together all the events that led up to the shooting to find out what pushed the teenager to commit the shooting spree. Just Business is about a police officer who investigates a crime which leads him to make a horrific discovery. Lastly, I have written and drawn my own manga comic. It's called One Chance. A samurai challenges a farmer to a fight to the death. Who will win? This is only one scene from an upcoming Japanese graphic novel I am working on. I'm writing it and drawing it. The one thing I want you to take from all of the above is this. Perfect characters are boring because they are too good to be true. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been helpful and inspiring to you. If you have any characters you have created, feel free to share them. I am keen to hear your stories. Take good care of yourselves.